Swim check 1, 2. Bike check 1, 2. Run check 1, 2. I think we're ready. Let's try this. Welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck podcast, a podcast where we explore the sport of triathlon from a variety of perspectives to help beginner triathletes on their journey. I am your host, Mashonda Shines. Well, welcome back to another edition of Try Beginner's Luck. As I lifted my hands up, I see they're a little ashy, but we're in December, so that's to be expected, right? Well, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, you probably will get a glimpse of this ash. But what's most important is that this season in December is about family. And so families that try together. And last week we had Gwen Jorgensen, our Olympic gold medalist, and her family talking about what it takes to, send an Olympic gold medal, support a family that will support an Olympic gold medalist. And this week, listen, when I tell you that this season has been, people have come into my life in such unique format that I can't describe or explain it myself. And so I met this father-daughter duo at the Mitchell House. I guess it will be on the Chesapeake Bay area for a race with Kinetic Multisport. And we were all doing Watermans, and we were staying at this cute little bed and breakfast. But of course, at a bed and breakfast, you have breakfast at a certain time, and you have your tea time, you have your, like, everything is just really organized and sanctioned. And so the final day, we were all checking out, and all of the athletes were checking out, and we were having breakfast together and started talking. And it was just like, whoa. When you meet this father-daughter duo, you'll realize why I had to have them on. Now, let me just set it up. So we met briefly, or I guess from a distance, at age group nationals. So that's the wild part about it. But then we were up close and personal. They can't see that yet. And we were up close and personal at the Mitchell House. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome in Hannah Dighton, who is a Connecticut native, who recently transplanted to the Washington, D.C. area with a passion of movement and outdoors. She is a member of the D.C. Tri Club and spends a lot of her time training, doing yoga, hiking, and camping, and loves seeing live music. She also works as a psychiatric nurse practitioner, but Hannah and I have in common that we don't plan. And we just do things without planning. And when we found that out, we were like, oh, this is meant to be. I also want to welcome in Pops. Now, listen here. When you meet Pops, you'll know why everyone calls him Pops. His name is Chris Dighton, who wears many hats as grandfather, triathlete, spin instructor, and 30-plus year business owner and tile contractor. He's a lifelong athlete, and his favorite weekend of the year is the Collegiate NCAA Lacrosse National Championship, and he believes in the practice of gratitude every day. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck podcast, Hannah and Pops. How y'all doing?
Great. How are you, Mashonda?
I'm so good. Okay, I'm going to put it on like a split view now, but show everybody your shirts that you were trying to show them up front. The USA Triathlon National Age Group National Championship.
There we go.
Look at that. So, y'all, what I love about this story is Hannah and Pops have done every single triathlon of their career together. What? Yes. They started their career together, and they actually did their first Olympic this year at Waterman's. So just give us a little bit of a background about how you even got started into this, Pops, because I think you're the one who brought Hannah into the sport.
Sure. So we are both we were bred to be team sports competitors. And Hannah played lacrosse, in college, and she was always in the constant training mode for her team sports. And when her career was starting to wane, and realize, lacrosse was coming to an end, I too was kind of coming to the end of my career as an old man lacrosse league player. So we kind of merged, ironically enough, these two generations at the same time, and we were searching for something that could fulfill our athletic well. And so we started training together really when Hannah was a collegiate athlete, learned kind of our behaviors, learned how to tolerate one another in some of the crunch times, but all kind of built on itself. And, Hannah graduates, she starts spinning. I see that she's spinning, so I started spinning. And so we've just kind of we've come out of this together and just realized we were searching for something more. So I ended up at my local gym. I saw there was an opportunity to take a beginner triathlon class, 10-week program. And I told Hannah all about it. And she said, well, that sounds fantastic. When am I going to do it? So anyway, pressing forward, we both have just started. We started about 6, 7, or 8 years ago, doing these triathlons together. And it's been a great thing because she pushes me more than I can really push myself. So
maybe now.
Yeah, maybe now, right?
Yeah. That the tables have turned. So
yes.
What would be your take on it, Hannah?
Yeah, I remember I was studying abroad in France at the time. So I was having multiple pastries a day, not thinking about athletic endeavors, just really, living the good life and enjoying it. My dad asked me and said, would you sign up for this? Like, I'm going to do a triathlon. And I'm very much a yes person. So I said, let's do it. Let's do it. So I remember coming back, and it was only a couple weeks after I'd come back to the US. And I was not in the best shape of my life, but we ended up doing it together. And then, we were just kind of hooked by the camaraderie of the triathlete community, just how everyone was cheering for us, and everyone out on the course. So that's kind of how it started. And then from then it took off. And it was also a good way to bond as a father-daughter pair, to have some shared interests, as I've gotten older, to kind of be able to do things together and have those sacred moments, as I get older. And
And I don't.
Of course not, Pops. You cannot get older. You only get better, right?
Just better, yes.
Just better. I love it. The fact that Hannah, you say yes, I'm kind of like that. It's like, okay, sure. And then you think about it and you're like, what did I say yes to? Okay. I should probably at some point start to research the things I say yes about. But sometimes the best things are just going out there and doing it. And so I appreciate your effervescent personality like myself that just says, okay, sure, we'll do it. Let's make it happen.
Right.
So you guys both did your first race together in 2017, was it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back there. First race. Tell me about that experience, because now you have war stories, right? You have your version, and Hannah, you have your version. So I want to hear both versions. So tell me what it was like training for your first race and then actually competing in your very first race.
So lack of training was probably a bigger issue, certainly for me. Swimming was something I did growing up as a kid. It wasn't something I ever trained for, certainly for triathlons. I certainly didn't do enough swimming training before my first triathlon. I didn't know what to expect, but I sure didn't expect what I was up against when I did my first swim. I can tell you, it was a half-mile swim, and I darn near drowned a couple of times and threw up multiple times during transition getting onto the bike. It was the greatest learning experience, my first try, that I'm glad I didn't know what I was getting into, because transitioning onto the bike, I was still a little uneasy. We're on the bike course. Hannah and I were doing it together. We decided we would parallel our race. We weren't racing against anybody. We were just trying to do it together. And, halfway down on the bike ride, I fell off my bike, reaching for my water bottle. So poor Hannah's thinking, oh, this old guy, what am I going to do with this old guy? I was just like trying to get through the experience. But one way or the other, I got to the finish line, and I learned a lot. I knew I had set the benchmark. I knew what it was, and I knew what I had to do. And I can assure you there was a lot more training after that first triathlon.
But what's so interesting is that I love the way you said I set the benchmark and then you changed the course to do the training. But the fall off the bike, sometimes falls shake you up. What was like, what were you thinking? And was it just like, look at you, like, what was that like? Because I know when I fall, I'm real dramatic. And so I'm liable to just lay there and just be like, in the moment just for a second to get my thoughts together. But what was that like when you fell down, and what motivated you to keep going after that point during the race?
I have to tell you, it really wasn't an emotional issue for me. I am by nature kind of a physical person. So, falling off the bike didn't, rattle me in terms of, am I broken? Is something, I just kind of sucked it up and realized, I have an issue here. I have to, get my bearings, get back on the bike, get my water bottle that rolled across the road, and just get back on the pedal. I'm a pretty determined person, so it really didn't set me back. It was just kind of another example of what I need to do better. It was just a reminder, for the next race, and what, going on my training journey now in between, events. I go back to these moments every single time, and it's really a blessing, I felt, to be honest with you. If it was so easy, anybody could do it. And I know anybody can't do it. You just have to stay determined.
Now that's a whole word. If it was easy, anybody could do it, and not everyone does it. So only a certain percentage of people do triathlons across the world, no matter what distance it is.
Yes.
And honestly, getting your water bottle and balancing your water bottle and drinking, that's still challenging for many people, even people who have been doing this for years. I was at a race recently, and somebody was saying how, look, I'm still not that comfortable getting my water bottle. So I have to do a different type of hydration system so that I can get water, because otherwise it's just really hard for me to do. So yeah, but if your water bottle happens to fall off in a race and you can go without it, just let it go.
Yes.
He did. And then I couldn't let him go without it. I think I scurried and I went to go
you stopped and got it.
That was the same image I had in my head, was the water bottle just like crossing
the road
across the road. Yeah. And hoping no one else tripped on it. And
right.
Yeah.
Pretty funny.
Look at you guys just being so courteous. Okay, Hannah, tell us your version of your story, because I mean, you guys are riding parallel, so the stories are different yet very unique. So tell us your version.
That was definitely, I know it didn't shake up my dad, but I think it shook me up a little bit to see him fall and then kind of have to get ourselves back going. But the race, I thought it went okay, all things considered. I think on the run, I was definitely hoping to do a little bit stronger, but I, stayed back with Pops and we finished strong together.
Yes, we finished together, right.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, from the first race, I feel like I have no memories that are burned in my brain aside from being with my dad.
So was that type of race that you erased it?
I think so. Honestly, that might be a little suppression there.
Exactly.
Purposeful.
Okay. Well, we won't take you back to that place because we don't know if it was a dark place or not, but what we will do is move forward and we'll talk about some other races and what racing has done for you. So you've gotten your first race out of the way, and now you know what you need to focus on. So what did you learn from your first race that you're taking into your journey as a more seasoned athlete?
That's a great question.
Wait a minute, I didn't stump you guys.
I know.
No.
I'm like, this is only question number 3. I'm like, do you
Well,
want?
well, yeah, I can kind of fill in that void.
Yeah.
The whole experience of that first race and not really, having a good training regimen going up to it, I learned I need to train more, of course. And then I learned how to create a training program for myself. But more importantly, I learned how to really, and I really do, embrace the training aspect of it. I look at it as just, it's selfishly time for myself to, make me a better person, not just a better triathlete, but just, a better person. I can think clear when I'm exercising, and that's what I really, embrace with the training now. Certainly with swimming, swimming has become what was my hardest event and least favorite, probably my most favorite now for those reasons. It's a really a zen type of experience, and when you're out there in the open water, how many people are willing to go out there and swim in open water, with things swimming around you or stinging you, and kind of put that aside to still stay in the moment. So you learn a lot about yourself, certainly with.
I would have to agree with you.
Yeah.
I do believe that each race brings on a different challenge, and the objective is, as long as you're trying, you should be learning, because you're always going to learn something. And
Yes.
when you mentioned, I can't necessarily, like, swimming is what I'm probably the best at. Like, it's not as zenful as you will call it, but I do enjoy going to the pool and just floating. And so that's my idea of zen, is just not doing anything. But most people that I'm hearing talk about how the pool is creating a zenful experience for them. And I think that's important, especially as you transition that into outside and doing open water swimming, and being able to lock in that focus, even when there are things floating around you, or, to your point, graciously stinging you without the invitation, because no one came for them. So they need to stay in their own lane.
That's right.
But I guess that is their lane, because that's their natural habitat and we're invading their space. But
Right.
whatever, I digress.
Right.
What about you, Hannah?
I think, to go off the training, just kind of integrating it into the daily program, and kind of it being part of my life. I feel like that was one thing my dad instilled in me, was just like working out, doing something physical every day, whatever it is. One thing he always tells us, it's not how long, it's not how far, it's how often. So kind of like not pressuring yourself to go out and kill it every day, or be the best you can be every day, but to do something every day and just build up that consistency. So that was, after that race, that was one thing where I was like, if I just, kind of stay in shape, stay consistent, then hopefully that would lend itself, to other races, being able to get through them, and then obviously ramping up the training prior to there, but like being consistent.
Yeah, it's that consistency. And I like what you said about it's about how often, and what makes you happy, essentially, is what you said. So you started in 2017. So take me through the course of your, I guess, race history, because you don't just do triathlons, you do road races as well. So give the audience a little bit of taste of the races that you do together as a father-daughter duo.
Yeah, so we do a lot of different things. So we have done a duathlon. That was before our tri career started, and we kind of got over our fear of swimming. But we also do a lot of running races. So our family does the Marine Corps 10K/marathon every year that happens in DC, and we've kind of rallied around that race, which has become a great familial tradition aside from just the two of us. And then we love, the turkey trots, the holiday races, things like that. I've gotten up to the half marathon distance that I've done 3 times on my own race trajectory, but the other races that we do are like the 5Ks and the fun runs.
Can't do the long game on the runs. It's tough for me.
Now.
Yeah, now. The long game, yeah.
Understood. And I hear you don't have to run.
Mm-hmm.
There's some people who power walk faster than some people run. Did you know?
Yes. Yeah, I've seen that.
I think that has actually been a great thing for Dad. He, to have some patience with himself, with his body. He's had some hip problems this year, and to be, working on another area of life that it doesn't always have to be so competitive all the time.
Right.
You can kind of honor your body and honor what you can do that day. And I think that has been a hard lesson for you to learn, but I think you're starting to.
But a worthwhile lesson.
Yeah.
See how that's hard, Pops, because you are a former athlete and that competitive spirit is in you and you know what you could do. And so you in your mind want to still maintain that level. But I love how Hannah is so comforting and compassionate and like learning how to honor your body, like looking at him, like, you understand, honor yourself and chill out, Dad. That's what I'm really trying to tell you.
Right.
So gentle way.
Yeah, right. Well, I certainly believe that, it is the participation. I really put 100% in that. And I've dialed back the competitiveness of it and the expectation of trying to do my personal best every race, or that's kind of been sliding off the table a little bit. It's all about the participation. I'm certainly trying to do the best I can, but I'm not holding my hand to the fire. And again, I've kind of, my feeling really is it's the training. That's the journey for me that I really it's the solitude of, every day. And then when we can convene and we can race together, that's just icing on the cake. That's just the epitome of goodness, but it's the day in, day out that I celebrate.
I love that. So what is one of your most memorable experiences? Because since you've started doing triathlons, because you've started in 2017, but you've only done duathlons or sprints up until 2022. So what has been your most memorable race experience? Oh, we're getting last.
I have a good story. That's funny. That's a great question. And I was thinking you may ask that. So I'm thinking, so during all these few years that we've been doing this together, there's an element, there was more of an element of competitiveness with each other. What was your transition times? What was your swimming splits? Blah, blah, blah. We go back and forth. There was a little bit of a competition going. And so probably 3 or 4 years ago, we were doing a sprint on the coast in Connecticut, Niantic. And the swim brought you out into, the ocean there, a protected area of the ocean. And so my heat left first. Our swimming leg left first. I think I was either 3 minutes or 6 minutes released before Hannah. I was like, this is good. This is good. I'm gonna get in the water. And I know Hannah's a much better swimmer than I am, and she's faster than I am. But I'm thinking I'm gonna beat her in the race itself. I'm gonna have enough time. I just want to cross the finish line ahead of her. My time won't be better, but as long as I get to the tape first, I have bragging rights. So I go out and swim, and I feel like I'm nailing the swim, and I come out of the swim. I'm running along the beach, and I'm running towards the bicycle transition area, and I'm ripping off my wetsuit, and all of a sudden I turn around, and there's Hannah, and she goes, "Hey, Dad," and I'm like, "Oh my God, she's made up 6 minutes right out of the gate." So I'm already ahead of her. My wetsuit's off. I'm clipping in, I get on my bike and I take off and said, enough of this kid. I got to get ahead of her. She's not going to beat me. We're racing, through the town of Niantic, and about halfway through the bike leg, I'm like, I am killing this bike leg. I am like ripping it. There's no way she's going to get me today. I have her, right? And about halfway through, I'm like digging and biting and digging. All of a sudden, I hear this, "Hey, Dad." And she goes ripping by me. And just that was the last I saw of her for the rest of the day, until she had to wait for me at the finish line for about 15 or 20 minutes. So we kid all the time, "Hey, Dad," as she goes ripping by me. So I've learned to accept that.
Wow.
Right? Yep. I created a monster. So we crack up about that all the time.
So did you know you had passed your dad in the water, Hannah?
No, not in the water. Definitely not. Usually we keep when we're allowed to, we keep our belongings together next to each other, the bikes. So we kind of can tell who goes in, who comes out. But at that point, no, I didn't know that he was, that I was in like neck and neck with him until I saw him at the transition area and
like, "Hi, Dad."
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness. It's you already?
Again?
Oh, that is such a good story. What is it like? What a great memory. I think the reason why I wanted to do families that try together is because I want people to know that it can be so fun to introduce and just fun to create these memories, and that there are families who are trying all over, and it doesn't have to be at a particular age.
No.
You can just get out there and do it. And so um, when you're training and you're racing together with your dad and vice versa, pops with your daughter,
Sure.
what are some of the precautions that you take into place? Because a lot of times I've heard, and we've had guests on the show that's like, look, when my kids are out there, I'm just not at peace. So what brings you both peace knowing that everything is okay when you're racing together?
Good question.
Yeah, that is a great question. Do you
well, now, as Hannah's gotten better and she's elevated her game, I really don't worry anymore. I don't worry about really the safety aspect of it. She's a conditioned athlete. She takes it seriously. And so I really I don't worry like I used to, early on about where is she, how's she feeling, hopefully she, prepped right in the morning. I mean, we have all that kind of down now. So I'm always just thinking, I can't wait to talk to her after the race. I'm always just looking forward to that. So, fortunately for me, and she probably has different thoughts just because I'm older, I don't worry about her anymore. Yeah, I don't. She's given me that gift. I don't have to worry about her in that sense on the race course.
that's very
right.
That's good to hear. During Waterman's, I took a wrong turn and I got lost for a bit of time during the bicycle leg of that. And my dad was there, and my sister and her family was there. And I was just thinking, I was like, Dad's probably not worried, but I know Sam's worried. Right. I know even if my dad is let go of the worry, someone's worried. But I would say the opposite. I feel like when we first started, I thought that my dad was infallible, and he's kind of the superhero icon, can do anything. Like, of course I'm not worried. Like, he'll be fine. And it's kind of, that's just how you see your parents when you're young. And then as I've learned more about, just being an adult and everything else, it has been a little bit, more worrisome to have him on the course. And especially, like I said, with some of the muscle and injuries that he's had. But for the most part, I know that his tenacity and grit will get him through those moments. So at the end of the day, I never feel so worried. And I know that the EMTs and paramedics can take care of him if needed. I have confidence in the people at Kinetic and the other race organizations to help him.
But, Michelle, I'd like to add, kind of add something to that. It's a blessing as a parent to be able to show your vulnerabilities to your children, to actually, release those vulnerabilities and let them know, you are just
only human.
Yeah. I'm your dad, but I'm like anybody else. I think it's important. I think that's what helps our relationship too. Hannah knowing, in fact, all my kids knowing my weaknesses are just as important as my strengths. And that's what kind of keeps our relationship kind of real, and really on an open level. So I'm glad, she can worry, but I'm more than happy to, expel my worries to them now.
I love that.
Yeah.
Leading from vulnerability. And, a lot of parents, I'm not generalizing, but I kind of sort of am. That's hard, because you don't want your kids to see you struggle. Although when you get older, you start to see like, oh, my parents are human. They're not like these people who don't have real life problems. Because, when you're young, you just think it's all, it's just all about you and all about them being just great. And so to hear you say that, that's so important. And so, parents, especially young parents, it's okay to let your children see you in your moment of weakness. And I think that's a good place to lead from, and leading from that often makes you look stronger because you're able to share where you're weaker. And so that's really good.
Right. And this, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
But this sport, brings on emotion, and it's fun to share that emotion, within the family. It's fun for them to see your emotion, it's really, that's really awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I know. I mean, my parents, they played, they don't understand triathlon. So I need to be 100% clear. They do not understand it. They barely approve of me doing it, which is interesting because I'm just like, oh, you don't approve? Time for me to double down even more. But I do come from an athletic family. Like, my father, played football, basketball. They played tennis, a lot of tennis when I was growing up. And my mom, because she almost drowned and her cousins, they made sure that we knew how to swim. And so swimming was the very first thing that I knew how to do before I probably could really walk good, was swim, because I was in swimming lessons, from infancy. And so not that I was great at it, but I took a long hiatus off. But I don't even know what I'm saying now. Like, I feel like everything I was saying had a point, and then I just had like a little brain freeze.
Just that's the emotion, the emotion with parents,
Yes. So when my parents are tracking me and things don't look well or go well, or they actually have come to maybe one of my races and they're just like, you guys do hard stuff. Like, how are you out here doing this hard stuff? And I'm like, it's because it's fun. Like, it's really cool. And people, and even I'll say coworkers, they don't understand why. And sometimes you may not have a why beyond, I just enjoy giving myself a challenge. And so out of that emotional, you can work out so many things, like you said earlier, Pops, that, you work out your mental challenges. You're able to work those things out because you're allowing your body to get the endorphins that it needs. And you're thinking, because on the bike, it's a great time to think and process life. Like, you may be having a problem at your job and you could be super emotional about it, but by the time you get on that bike to work out,
it's all good.
It's all good, right?
All
and
good.
You don't have to take it out on your family members.
You can take it out on the bike.
Right.
Take it out on the bike and not on the family.
Yeah.
Exactly.
you mentioned, Hannah, that you went the wrong way at your race at Waterman's. And so that was actually your first Olympic that you and your dad both did together. And so I want to bring in that first Olympic experience and just tell our listeners and viewers, what was that like for the both of you, since we already heard one major part of it is going off course. So tell us about that race and some of the things that you learned from that race.
Yeah, well, we had wanted to do an Olympic for a while. We had been doing the sprint distances for a number of years, obviously with COVID, kind of went on a hiatus. And then I think at that point, I basically said, I'm going to do an Olympic. And my dad was saying,
not without
okay.
me. Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
I love it. That competitiveness, like
Right.
you may not be quote unquote competing against her, but you're not gonna let her get one distance up on you.
Right,
Oh,
yeah, without me.
I love that.
It's so true. We had done most of the races early on, like up in the Connecticut, tri-state area, New England. But this one, he came down to my new turf, and we went to Maryland on the Chesapeake. So, yeah, it was a good race overall, I would say. One of the things that we both struggle with, I think, is nutrition, both prior to and then fuel during the race. So that was one thing that I was grateful I had a little bit extra of those goos on the bike and kind of had to plan it out a little bit more. But yeah, it was a fun race, and doing the longer distance kind of made me crave even more triathlon in my life. So
yeah, it's I cried at the end. I got there,
Really?
and you know,
wow.
my grandson was he saw me. I was coming down kind of around the last bend, and he came onto the course, and I ran with him a little bit, and you know, I said, I'll see you at the finish line. So I then continued on. I got to the finish line, and I was alone at that point. I had that moment, and that moment is why you do it, because it's a recognition of yourself. You know, it's a recognition of yourself. You know, we don't do that enough. We're always kind of powering forward, but looking at yourself, feeling an accomplishment, really feeling it, which is really what it's all about.
Wow.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Hannah, with you did so the mile swim, a 56-mile bike, and then a 6.2 mile run.
Yes,
You had an extra Olympic that day. So how was that feeling for you?
I had quickly not doubled the distance, had quadrupled it, or but luckily I had finally gotten a road bike, so I felt pretty comfortable. But yeah, now that just created more of a burn, right, for the next thing.
Yeah.
I love that. So a little bit of backstory. What she isn't telling you is I think she had was it a steel bike prior to the Olympic?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was the bike, which is funny enough that my dad had ridden after he had back surgery in the 80s. And I had been on that bike. I had been on the back of the bike as an infant when he was riding it.
Right.
So it was a hand-me-down bike. Yeah, I think it was a steel bike that we just, had for a while. And that was my first triathlon bike. So once I had, put 4 or 5 years with that one, I was like, okay, it's time to upgrade to something a little lighter, and see if I can excel.
I think I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, clearly you did excel because you did the distance of 56 miles without training for it. Most people would be like, wait a minute, but that steel bike gave you that muscular endurance so that you could endure and overcome on race day at Waterman's.
Right,
because
there
it was
you go.
raining, it was cold. I'm sure you were miserable, but yet what I remember most is your smile.
Thank you.
And having a smile on your face.
Yeah. I mean, you have to, right? It's part of, part of why I do it. And it was still fun, right? That's the weirdest thing. I'm like,
Exactly.
what is wrong with me that I still think that's fun? But I mean, my whole family was waiting for me at the end. They were troopers, and my nephew was still waving the cowbell, cheering us on, and it was a fun race. So
Way to try beginner's luck doing your first, well, I guess we should say Olympic half.
Olympic
Olympic,
First Olympic half.
Olympic half. There's a new. That's perfect.
Right. It's a good way to get your feet wet.
Absolutely. Test the waters. Let me see if I can do this.
Right.
Because the bike is the longest. Wow. Okay. So you did your first Olympic this year at Waterman's, but you're wearing t-shirts from another event that was in Milwaukee, which is Age Group Nationals. So talk about your experience at Age Group Nationals. And was this your first Age Group Nationals as well?
Was it your first?
It was my first in attendance. Yes. I was an attendee.
Yeah.
I was not a participant.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we went out, and I was Hannah's road crew.
Mm-hmm.
So we went out to Milwaukee together, and brought out our bikes, and Hannah got ready for the race, and we got to know Milwaukee, which is a beautiful city, and really enjoyed it. And another great experience.
So how did you even know? Because I want the viewers and listeners to know, like, how did you even know that you qualify for Age Group Nationals? And tell us about that process and the road to get there.
So I figured out I qualified via email. I had gotten an email, from USA Triathlon that said, you've qualified. And I think I had qualified prior to the pandemic, actually. But because of COVID and everything, we weren't able to go. So there were a few races where I had placed in my age group, which was, again, getting into the sport younger is helpful, because I feel like as people get older, more people join the age groups. So I will say there aren't a ton of people, I feel like, who are in the 20 to 24 age group at the time. But so I figured out I qualified, I think, from placing at one of those races. And I basically said, the pandemic's winding down. I really want to do this. I'm going to do it. And I knew who I needed to call, because I knew who would help me cheer me on. Be the road crew, the passenger, or I guess I was the passenger. My dad did most of the driving out there, but yeah, we drove the 13 hours out to Milwaukee. My dad loves the road. He has done a lot of long distance driving. So yeah, we packed our bags up and went out there. And I think, for one of your earlier questions, Bashanda, that was probably my favorite memory of doing triathlons together. I just felt like that whole weekend, we biked along the river, or the lake, I should say, and just had a really good time together. And I think that was, again, the epitome of families who try together. That was
it's another way to stay connected, with your adult children. That's always tricky.
So speaking of adult children, you have another daughter who lives in the DC area.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Sam.
And so what activity does she try? Does she run? Like, how does she connect with you guys in this new stage of life?
I always say I had a daughter, I had a son, and I had Hannah. So my three kids are wonderfully different. Sam has never been accused of being an athlete, although I will say she's taken to some road running now. Okay. But she is one of our most ardent supporters. She really is a big supporter of, the family dynamic. And, it's great that Sam and Hannah are down here in the DC area. They, they're very tight. So it's a good situation. But as far as triathlons, I don't see that in their future.
Yeah, this is a restricted sport.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about your son?
And then my son, Matt, who was an incredible athlete, he's one of these guys that anything he did really well.
Mm.
But he always chose not, he kind of was like, he went against, the norm. Like everybody wanted him on his teams. He was a great lacrosse player, football player, but he didn't want to stay in the lane. And a lot of these team sports, you need to stay in the lane. And he's a free spirit, incredible athlete. He still is. He's a couple years older than Hannah, and like Hannah, he works out a lot. He's very physical. He likes to stay in shape, but I think what trips him up, he would probably try the triathlons, but you know what? It's always the swimming for most people.
Mm.
Unlike your experience where you grew up swimming and our experience where we swam a little bit and we weren't afraid to kind of take it to the next level. Most people get tripped up with the swim. That's the one they just can't identify with.
Yeah, I
Do you
can.
find that?
Oh, for sure. I
Yeah,
would say 80% of the guests on Try Beginner's Luck, that is the biggest hang up is the swimming. And I understand, I get it. Swimming
me
is
too.
hard.
Me
Swimming
too.
brings a fear for people. They've had traumatic experiences and having to overcome that.
Right.
And it takes a while and you don't want to rush that. And so I just feel like your brother will probably come into himself, when he's like, okay, I need a challenge. And when he's ready to learn, he'll learn. Just like most people, when they're ready to learn, they learn and they take it seriously. I have a
Right.
lot of friends, actually, it's so weird. They've been calling me lately and saying, hey, I'm really inspired and I'm taking swimming lessons because I may want to try doing this at some point. And I'm like, what? You,
Wow.
like, and so
Right.
to hear that, and as a Black woman, hair being a challenge, and to see some of my friends who are just like, hey, we're getting braids, we're getting what we need to do so that we can take the lessons.
Right.
That to me is empowering. And I love when we as adults can take our own destiny into our hands and be able
Yes.
to do the things that we might not have been able to do or could afford to do when we were growing up. And so
Right.
that to me is empowering. And
Right.
so the fact that you all try together and get an opportunity to do this together, you can't take it for granted. What would you tell families who might be wanting to try but can't, seem to get it together to do what you and Hannah are doing?
I think that, my first suggestion for any family who's kind of like on that fence, just trying to, figure it all out would be go to one. Just go feel the experience. Don't go as a competitor, but just go as you know, uh,
Spectator.
a spectator and just enjoy the moment and try and pick up cues from listening to other people's dialogue and just listen and seeing the exuberance that's around because there really is a ton of exuberance and positivity. And once you're there as a spectator, I think that would be the biggest hurdle.
Yeah.
And then you kind of then can figure everything else out. Try your first one. You're gonna have an experience your first try. But I would suggest anybody just go as a spectator. You'll feel it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, did you want to add to that, Hannah?
Yeah, I was gonna just say in terms of, getting into even doing it together, just going for walks, right? And like putting on a pair of shoes, getting
Right.
outside.
Right.
I think that was something that we also started to do together early on to just have like that quality time. I feel like quality time is always better when you're moving, right? And you're outside
Mm.
and just like, I don't know, that's when conversations tend to be deeper and
Yeah.
kind of centering activities around those like walking, things like that would
Sure.
be a good place to start too.
Yeah, for sure.
I love. So what's next for Team Dighton? The Fighting Dightons. What's next for you
Fighting
guys?
Titans,
Yes.
yes.
What's next?
Iron Man?
Yeah. Let's skip a whole Whole distance. I don't know. We started to try and look at the tri schedule for next year and put together some dates. Obviously, summers fill up quickly as weddings and things like that start. So we're trying to solidify some calendar. I said we'll do at least one down in this area, at least one up near Pops.
And, you know, obviously we also have, you know, gotten to the point now we're moving forward. Hannah's down here. She's with the DC Tri Club. You know, she's going to have an opportunity to do many more events down here, which is awesome. You know, she has good camaraderie down here. So our string will be broken and she'll be doing events without me.
Oh, how do you feel about that, Pops?
That's okay. I'll be a spectator. I'll come down, you know. I'm okay with it.
He is one to come down at a moment's notice, and
clearly,
yeah.
And I say that because he came down because he came down to DC because he wanted to do this interview with his daughter, and I'm like, wait a minute, you did all this for Tri Beginner's Luck?
Right.
Wait a minute.
Absolutely.
Mashonda's energy was just, I mean, we had the same reason. We were like, it was so serendipitous. We recognized her from the age group national championship, and then we saw her, you know, at the inn, and both of us, we were like,
it was meant to
that
be.
energy, like, we just need to
absolutely
to connect, and
it was meant to
connect in the best of ways over food and trying.
Right.
Yes. Yes, and some sherry. A little bit.
All in the sherry.
Yeah, we got into the sherry.
We got into the sherry a little bit. Oops. Forgot about that.
Right.
Oh my goodness, that is so funny. I actually just had some sherry the other day and was like, oh, I've had sherry before and didn't realize I had sherry.
Right.
Such a nice aperitif.
Yes,
Definitely.
it sure is.
Oh my goodness. Time flies when you are having fun. My goodness, you guys are so welcome back here anytime. I would love to have you. Thank you so much for being here. And we have like a little fun part of our segment where it's called, Lord, I just forgot it just that quickly, but it's rapid fire. That's it. So we have some rapid fire questions that we like to ask you really quick. Just say what comes to your mind first, and then we'll wrap it up. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
All right. Favorite post-workout food?
An egg burrito. I know.
That's interesting. A burger.
Okay, burger. All right. Favorite place to bike?
Rock Creek Park.
Lake Warmug in New Preston, Connecticut.
Okay. At the end of a race, is it beer, wine, water, soda? And I'm just going to add sherry because why not?
Definitely some sherry. I would say mostly water for me.
I say
beer.
Water and beer.
Yeah.
Simultaneously.
Okay. Simultaneously. 2 hands.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing about triathlon overall?
The energy.
Yeah, the camaraderie for sure. Okay. Yeah, it's all about the camaraderie.
Audiobook, podcast, music, or silence when you train?
Music.
Silence.
It's because his iPod never works. He's not very technologically inclined.
Right, silence by
no other option.
By no other option, right?
I love it. And what is a big challenge that you've had to overcome while you've been doing triathlons?
For me, I had back surgery years ago, and it rears its ugly head from time to time. So I have back challenges. So I have to know how to kind of nurture that along and how to train correctly. So I'm not doing the unnecessary pounding, and I have good days and bad days. And, part of that challenge then is the mental challenge that comes along with that. And that again is kind of like, that's life, and you have to learn how to balance it and get over it and figure it out. So for me, it's my back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think for me now, finding the time to train while also working. I was in graduate school before, so it was a little bit easier and more flexible to find that time. And now I'm having to carve it out a little bit more and see if I can.
Hannah's got a job.
Have a job. So
those darn jobs that get in the way of training.
I'm telling you.
What's the problem?
I don't know.
Yeah,
She became a big kid.
It's training, then jobs. Do they not?
Right.
I need some sponsors. If anyone's listening.
Hello. Sponsors, where you at? Let us do
Yes.
this for the free. Like, come through. Okay, and final question. Pee on the bike or take a proper pee break?
Proper pee break on the bike, but you can pee on the run.
What? Oh, okay.
Huh.
I've done it once while it was raining.
Just peeing in the swim. Just pee in the swim.
We didn't even answer your question. We picked the other legs of the race. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I guess there's no better time to pee than whenever you pee when you try.
Right.
I don't know. Oh my gosh, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on Try Beginner's Luck. As what we say at always, whenever you try Beginner's Luck, you always win. But it's always better when you try with your family. Families that try together truly stay together, stay connected, and build great memories. And so thank you all for trying together and building your memory and legacy for generations to come. And we will love to have you back on Try Beginner's Luck when you do the next big challenge so we can hear about that. Until then, hey guys, if you like what you're hearing, please like, share, write us a comment, send us a note, let us know. Share it with your friends. We want to get the word out about Try Beginner's Luck as we're sharing good stories about people's first time experiences. My name is Mashonda Shines, and we are out. Peace.
Thanks, Mashonda.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in and listening to this episode. We need your help so we can continue to try at TBL. So for more information on where you can find and subscribe to this podcast, visit www.trybeginnersluck.com. And don't forget, whenever you try Beginner's Luck, you always win.